Hey, hello there. Hello. Welcome to the Punch Up Pod with Leila and Pat. We are so excited to have Tara Reade here with us today. Author, survivor, former legislative aide, actress, wonderful spokesperson for Medicare for All. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great seeing you at the rally.
It was so much fun, even though it was 500 degrees. Although right now, because of my crazy lighting, it looks like I'm on fire. So sorry. I am aware of that, everybody. It's not intentional. I just can't help it right now. Sorry.
You're an activist and you're activated.
Woo! Breathe fire. It was so great to see you. Your speech was fantastic. Pat, I know Pat's here. Hi, Pat. How are you today?
Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate everything you've done for the real Me Too movement and speaking up for yourself and highlighting the contrast between the hypocrisy of a lot of the Democratic Party and not respecting your allegations as much as any other person coming forward with the sexual assault case. So
I really appreciate you saying that.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So we wanted to start with a clip of you at the Medicare for All march just this last Saturday. Okay. And we'll come back and talk about it after this.
Noise. I was a young staffer in 1993 and I worked for Joe Biden. And I can tell you, he is not interested in consent. He is not interested in your health care. He is funded by Big Pharma and by the healthcare lobby. And when I came forward in 1993, I lost my health care. I was a federal employee. As a sexual assault survivor, losing health care when you come forward in a job or about sexual harassment, either one, losing that is pivotal in losing benefits. It's really super hard. And I had met, as a domestic violence advocate, many women and men who had barriers accessing medical because they were staying in a relationship that was abusive just to hold on to medical care. Healthcare is a human right. It's not just a chance. It's not just us asking for something for free. We're asking the government to pay for it, but we're not asking them to run it. This can be done. Whole Washington is doing it. California can do it. When you elect a predator to the highest office of the land who's funded by other predators, you're not going to get anything with health care. So we need to vote in people that hear our voice, and we can get Medicare for all. Not an expansion, Medicare for all. Thank you.
Yeah, that was a great speech.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a very motivating day. I wish, I know that the park had to be canceled and things adjusted because of COVID and the Delta variant and all of that in Los Angeles, the rise. But yeah, it went well. And I think the organizers, were really good. I think they've one of the people that was causing a lot of dissent and problems was removed. And I think that was very honorable of them to apparently she was opposed to me speaking at all. So that person. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you all saw the Washington Post take on it, right?
That was insane. David Weigel, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll name the names. Yeah, that was.
No, I've said his name, David Weigel. I've talked to him on the phone, and it was really hard. I wrote an op-ed piece, which I
don't know. Yeah, what? Tell us exactly. Yeah, sorry.
So he basically said that someone, I'm forgetting the name now, said that I should not talk about Joe Biden, someone who is an organizer. And that I was restricted from speaking about my experience or Joe Biden. And none of the organizers, I was reached out to by Sharif, as you won't know, and Joy, No one ever said anything. In fact, they said, use your personal experiences as you see fit and talk about. So I talked about domestic violence, survivors and sexual assault survivors. And I did personalize it. Then he also had to add this little paragraph that reporters dug in and my story wasn't cooperated, which we all know. Ryan Grimm, Megyn Kelly, Rich McHugh, who was Ronan Farrow's writing partner, wrote 3 articles with interviews of my witnesses. So, and Katie Halper had my witnesses on her show. Yeah, no.
So that was appalling, actually, that he had to dig back, from a year ago and lie about it. It's just like the self-perpetuating what they do. And you wrote to him, or you tried to interact with him after that column?
I emailed him and I called him, and he listened to me, but said at the end of the conversation that he wanted to hear me out, but probably nothing would be retracted or changed. That was it. And he was very kind of smug. Right. His attitude was very dismissive.
So can I just ask, which of the major media outlets do you think handled your story the most responsibly?
I really think that Business Insider tried hard with Rich McHugh's reporting. And he is a trauma-informed reporter, and he's an investigative reporter. And you don't know his politics. You don't know what he's thinking. Same thing with Ryan Grimm. Ryan Grimm did a fantastic job. And not only that, and again, these are people I don't know. I only know them through them calling me and interviewing me and then digging deep. So like with Ryan Grimm, he would interview me or whatever. And then I wouldn't hear from him for months. I wouldn't even know if there was a story. And then boom, I see, like I found out with everyone else, that initial story that Anita Dunn was working for Joe Biden. I didn't know that. And Ryan Grimm is a great investigative reporter. And the fact that we don't know his politics, I think is better. And I know people criticize him a lot or say he's a shill. I just don't see that. I think he's one of the few real investigative reporters left, Max Blumenthal, Aaron Mate, him. And we need them. Rich McHugh just did a fantastic expose of the military response to sexual assault victims. And it barely got any, it should have gotten more coverage, and he's so suppressed on Twitter because of it. But, he went up against NBC and, called them out.
Right.
And I think the most recent really, it was really monumental for me was when Ryan Grimm called up the New York Times and said they should retract. And he called them out on the Hill, and then he showed the reporting where I didn't lie under oath. I mean, they were trying to have me put in prison for perjury. Can you imagine coming forward about a violent crime that happened to you and then being threatened with prison? It was surreal.
They were pulling out all the tools against you. And I did see that just recently is when he returned to the story to put to rest the lies that had been spoken about you, about your education, right? And your which I was really impressed by, that he did that. He came back, and he's not going to let it go until he gets to that truth, which is really impressive. I agree. And I'm sorry. I always just feel like I have to say that because we've been so abused by all the people who were supposed to be allies. It's frightful.
And I've gotten allies from surprising corners, right? Like Megyn Kelly and our politics don't match at all, right? And I'm sure she doesn't think much of my politics, but she covered my story very, diligently and did what she could, as far as, trying to present it to the world.
Right.
I chose to go a different route rather than a major network. I think the worst network, as far as the worst handling, has been, Washington Post, AP, New York Times, and CNN. And CNN was just awful.
They were awful. I was reading, I will talk about it, but your book, which I loved. And there's so many beautiful passages about your childhood, it was the way you wove that into your present, and your whole story was really lovely and so well written. So thank you. And just the way, it's like every place is shut down to you to tell your story. So then you go to the place that welcomes you, and then you're called out for going to a Republican station or Fox, right? So it's like they're going to try and get you from every angle.
I know. And like Joseph Wolfson from Fox is a reporter who's reported on my story quite a bit. obviously we don't have the same politics probably. I don't know what his politics are. His job is to report on the media, and he does that. In fact, I can't really even tell what his politics are, but he's very like, he really calls out the corporate media, and even Fox, gets called out. So, it's just, it's, my attitude towards it is you go to the platform that lifts you. Glenn Greenwald is one of the most fantastic investigative reporters who had the story of our lifetime about Edward Snowden, besides, the Julian Assange story, which is the other, right? And Glenn Greenwald was on Tucker Carlson. So.
Right. And they're going to say, yeah, I know that. And so they have all of their allegations lined up against him because they actually have him on there, and it's like you can't win with that legacy media who is really running cover for the Democratic establishment.
Now the squad is, and it's just it's hard. And Bernie, and I loved Bernie, and then I just watched the Katie Halper clip, where they were talking about it. And they showed a crystal ball, on their new show, Breaking Points, and that interview was, that was hard. That was really
hard to watch. It was hard to watch because we're used to him being a gadfly and an outsider who gets to really cause a lot of problems. And his role is different now. And I think we all just need to keep doing our own legwork and agitating from the outside and telling the truth.
Yeah.
Never stop telling the truth. So when you, I'm sorry, I'm supposed to be, we don't have any helpers here. It's just Pat and I trying to run this. And as I'm watching the different comments come up, thank you. I'm going to try to get back onto it. And all the politicians go on Fox News Sunday, so they should all show up. Somebody says, thank you, Graham. That's absolutely right. They go on there when they want to, just like when Bernie went on Joe Rogan, right? And then when none of the others go on there,
it's selective outrage on the people who if you don't like someone, they go on Fox. It's the worst thing in the world. If you like the person, well, of course they're reaching a broad audience. So
right.
It's pure hypocrisy.
That's a great term, selective outrage. I like that.
Yeah. So overall, okay, let's talk a little bit more about the Medicare for All marches and rallies across the country. How did you think that went? How does that play into how we're trying to do this sort of outside-inside strategy? Where do you think we go from here with Medicare for All?
I think you keep pushing just like they're doing. And I think the organizers, are really grassroots and they're trying really hard to get momentum, and hats off to them because we need it. We need this. Just like 11 million people as of today are being evicted, more than 11 million. Those that are being counted, right? So imagine how many that are not counted.
Right.
And, I have been there. I've been evicted. I have been close to homeless because of domestic violence circumstances. I have been close to homeless when I came forward about Joe Biden. They evicted me even though I paid rent because they heard on CNN I had a death threat. So they came to my place because I was renting a cottage on property and said, you have 1 month, because we had a month-to-month lease, and you're evicted. You're gone. Like, that's it. And I had 1 month in the middle of COVID to move with my pets and my horse. And they said, they added in there, we support Biden. Well, great. So find the landlord that doesn't support Biden. But my point is that I know what it's like on the visceral level to be in a car with my pets and not know where to go and not have enough money to have like first, last deposit. And then of course, anyone Googling my name.
Right. Because then it's a black mark on your records forever. Once you've been evicted, even if you get housing again, it's like the bad check. Like they're going to use every single, black mark against you, that they're the ones who gave you that black mark in the first place, to then follow that around for the rest of your life.
But it's absolutely insidious that your landlord has the right to tell you to mention politics in your eviction. That's just...
Well, and it's not really an eviction when they just gave me notice, right? It didn't go to the eviction because I had paid rent. So they gave notice. But it's discriminatory. I mean, had I the wherewithal, maybe I could have fought them a little, but I didn't have the energy. So we came to an agreement that I would be out within 60 days or whatever. And I did that. and then was in the car, like motel to motel with my cats until I found a place to live in Oregon. And, and frankly, it was scary to have death threats. That was very scary. But I just think it's my story is such a microcosm of the American story, which is we're fed this thing that if you work hard, which I have done, if you're educated, you can buy a house someday or buy a car. Well, I'm sorry, but that's not the truth anymore. Oligarchs have hijacked all that. And for most people, it's just paycheck to paycheck. And I think on Jackson Hinkle's show, he mentioned how $400 is something we can't afford individually now if you're a working class citizen.
That's right.
A $400 emergency. And we can do better. So to answer your question, Medicare and housing is all tied together. I think all of it. The student loan debt, which is the highest in the world for any developed nation that we have. And you couple that with a low minimum wage, which they still didn't manage to get the $15 minimum. I mean, minimum should be $25, $26.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so we have to fight for the whole thing together. That's what I think.
I agree. So I just wanted to come back to this just so you can respond to it, because I know there was a group on the nominal left who said that your even being invited to the rally was somehow divisive, which again, I find just flabbergasting, like that they could say that. But so you were talking about your experience as a sexual assault survivor in a country that does not guarantee healthcare for all, and how you had to pay for things that we wouldn't necessarily, if you haven't gone into the system that way, you wouldn't even know that you have to pay for it, right?
Right.
That you're discriminated against, even in your lowest, saddest moments where you're feeling most vulnerable, and you still don't have anybody who can back you up.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and the fact that somebody would think that it's not okay for a sexual assault survivor to speak over politics. Sexual assault is not political. It crosses all socioeconomic lines. It crosses every culture, every political ideology, and we can't, marginalize people in that way. So I just accepted the invitations from Sharif and Joy and kept moving forward and spoke. And I met lovely people at the march. Actually, I didn't have anyone be rude or anything to me. I had everyone coming up and really being lovely. Like
I saw that. I was there with you. I saw so many. I had to wait my turn to come in and say hi to you. But yeah, I think it tends to be the people who like to lob the insults at the ones who are doing the work, who say, go off and touch grass, go organize, but they're sitting behind their computers, their keyboards, and say it's disgusting.
Well, my point regarding that is, let's say you believe their perspective that somehow you are divisive. You're one of how many speakers at this thing? Do we not want a broad breadth of opinions supporting Medicare for all? Like to taint a march to attempt to do it even is evil, in my opinion, because we want everyone to come out. We want people we disagree with politically to be at the march.
Right. And, we need to stop making the politicians celebrities. They're not our friends. And they are really showing how much they are not our friends. Just like reporters aren't my friends. Politicians are not our friends, okay? They work for us, our tax-paying money. And they ran on the platform. The progressives did on a platform. And I have been staying out of watching all the back and forth about some of the left criticizing AOC and all of that. But today I saw Cori Bush's interview when Max Blumenthal asked her a question, and then her staff come in and brush her away. And I was like, no, these elitist games have to stop. Yeah. You either are a progressive or you're not. And if you ran on that platform, be ready to be primaried, because you're not delivering. It doesn't matter why. It doesn't have to be emotional. It doesn't have to be personal attack. They're not delivering.
That's right.
Put them out. They're done. As far as I'm concerned, every one of them are done.
Yeah, I mean, so I agree with your idea behind that. We all are going to have different ideas about where we come down on them, but I certainly think that every politician owes an answer to his or her constituents. And absolutely, the force the vote and Medicare for all tie right into what's happening now with the evictions. All of these people who are about to be evicted are going to be even further out of a system that's already subjugated them for decades, centuries. Right. And the same tactics of drawing attention to a national travesty, that's always important to do. You never lose when you call attention to it. And to try to protect some of these people, you know, the most glaring and repulsive instance is Joe Biden and everybody running cover for him. But nobody should be protected. If they don't want to be called out on it, act better, do better, right?
Yeah, and I these are people that I would vote for, obviously, given the chance to support if I was in their district, and, you know, support in that way and have tweeted out and whatnot. But bear in mind, not one of them has come out in support of me over Joe Biden, right? Not one. AOC kind of did a lukewarm little dance, but then she backed right down when he was.
I mean, in 2019, it felt like there was some honesty there. And then as soon as he became, I mean, there was at least like, I actually do remember her having an interview where she said, we have to look into these allegations. They sound believable. And that was in 2019. And that zipped right up when he became the nominee, which is repulsive.
It is. It's not. I mean, there are things you bargain with, and then there are things you don't. And I know she was hoping to get her climate change. Probably that was at the foremost of her mind. Her constituency needed certain things, and she was hoping to get that climate change. And everyone kept playing into that game about Trump being the worst thing ever. Well, he is, and no one wants him to be president either. But is there really any difference? We don't have a minimum wage. People are dying. There's misinformation about COVID all over the place. Wear masks, don't wear masks. The vaccines work. No, they don't. NPR just aired a story today where there's 125,000 women that say their periods have changed after the Pfizer vaccine. And the CDC says we don't have that information. I mean, what's going on? You know, the corporate media needs to step back away from politicians and the political, and we need to get in politicians that are actually grassroots and not, you know, mouthpieces for multinational corporations.
That's exactly.
Yeah, like even in regards to the recent, you know, the protests for Occupy Congress, where a few of the squad members were in front of Congress. You know, they spent the night and they're raising awareness, which I respect tremendously. Like, great, you're doing that. But then apparently the biggest crowd response they got was just saying that they all, along with Pelosi, wrote a letter to Joe Biden to try to get Joe Biden to force the CDC to which is not, the CDC doesn't have the power to rescind the to reinstate the eviction moratorium. So they were all pinning the blame on this collectively with Pelosi, who had plenty of foreknowledge to do something about this and prevent Congress from shutting down. But they all put the blame on essentially Biden to bug the CDC, right. Which
that's ridiculous.
That's not the role they need to be in.
And
Biden could write an executive order. He could write executive order after executive order, just like Trump did.
Right. Trump literally wrote an executive order for the eviction moratorium.
He could have included it in his infrastructure package. Yep. Let's go back to that. Look what they took out of that infrastructure package in the, you know, to reach across the aisle. What the fuck is that? Like, it's not working.
So that's the thing that's so frustrating, right? Is that the media keeps the news organizations, they keep sort of allowing that narrative to stand, that's reaching across the aisle and bipartisanship, where I feel like we all know the truth is there's almost no air between Republicans and Democrats when it comes to serving their corporate donors, right? So that joke is that Democrats are going to pretend that they stand for something. Everything about climate was stripped out of that bill.
Absolutely right. We're not in an even duopoly. Like I used to say, oh, this is duopoly. No, we're in an oligarchy. That's it. And, you know, Ryan Knight had posted about that a long time ago. And, you know, the oligarchs, they're watching this and kind of, they're the ones, we're all busy trying to call out these politicians, but those are just puppets. They don't, I mean, what, spending the night at the Capitol? Who cares? You're not doing anything.
Right.
They didn't solve anything. And at the end of the day, we can all have good intentions, but what did you do?
Right.
And so what did Cori Bush do? What did AOC do?
Right.
And the reason why we're picking on them is because they ran on this platform, which was 40% of the Democratic Party. So what the Democrats are going to do in 2022 when they lose 40%, when 40% of us just say, forget it, we're done.
Yeah.
Midterms are going to be rough. They're going to be very rough because Biden is going to own COVID Part 2 and all of the everything put in place to protect people from COVID and unemployment. It's all going to expire under Biden, and we're going to all live with it for a year.
Right.
At least everybody losing housing and getting out of the system, that won't, even if they get housing again, it's like that doesn't go away. That stays with them on myriad levels.
Yeah. And the unemployment numbers are very suppressed right now. And I think the markets, if you notice, are real volatile right now. And they're volatile because there's going to be a showing of how much some of these companies are earning because of COVID, and then how much people in contrast are suffering. The more you have this division where you don't have a middle class, the more you're going to have an unrest. And I think it's time, we're at a point where we need a third party, a legitimate third party. I don't know. I've looked at the People's Party. I'm looking at the Green Party. More power to them, but we need more choices.
We need something because, as you said, the reason, and I've said this so many times, but the reason that I call out the squad isn't because they're the closest to me there. They're the only ones who might listen to me. Joe Manchin, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and certainly the whole Republicans, they don't care at all about what I think, what we think, and they're not trying to get any of their power or their votes from me. So the only people who I possibly have a chance of having any influence on are the squad.
And they're not listening. They're done. They've been absorbed into that machinery, I think. Unless they show us differently. But we keep saying that. Show us something, but they're not. They're virtue signaling. That's what they're doing. It's not. And Cori Bush, I especially was supportive of her. She's a domestic violence survivor. She lived in her car. She has struggled with poverty. But look how they glorified her story and her overcoming these obstacles. And look what they did to me with the same similar story, right? Similar things happening. But I'm viewed as a villain and manipulative and a user, and I'm trash and all these other names they used. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's it's where Believe Women and Medicare for All and living wage all died the day that Biden won. It was like,
if you want to see how out of touch they are, the article where the Democratic strategy for 2022 is going to be to blame Republicans for not funding the police. We have a whole year of BLM protests in the street, and the Democratic strategy is, I just can't wrap my head around that. Still, a week later, I don't know how to process that they're going to run on Republicans didn't fund the police enough.
Right. And remember too, like what just happened, which I'm still trying to process, Obama, whom I voted for back at the time, because I really believed his platform at that time. Right. Even though I was going through what I was going through and had not come forward yet, about Biden. And Obama just had a 60th birthday with hundreds of people not doing the COVID thing. So it's like the elites are saying, well, you all wear masks, but when it's not convenient for us, we do our own thing. We have Coldplay, we have a $12 million estate. Why does Barack Obama have a $12 million estate? Why are our presidents becoming oligarchs?
I mean, revolving door, right? And then you see, you saw who he put in his cabinet. We see all the BlackRock people that Biden put in his cabinet. I mean, they're about to be able to sweep in and buy a lot of apartments and houses and become the landlords of our whole country, right?
And then you have the defense contractors with the military industrial complex, Raytheon and so on. And it goes on and on. So what the answer is, because we're laying out all the problems, is we need politicians that are actually accountable. So I think you go hard at Cori Bush at AOC. You go harder, you call them out. Don't make personal attacks. Don't be misogynistic, but you call them out on their policy issues. And if they don't deliver, vote them out. They're done.
Yeah.
And you know what? If Republicans take over, maybe they'll investigate Joe Biden. I don't know. You know?
Well,
Yeah, they certainly need to fear us as much as they fear Nancy Pelosi and their donors.
They do.
And I fall back on the argument, and I say this a lot, but our pressure on them gives them justification to go harder at the Democratic Party. Like, without us pressuring them publicly, they can't go to Nancy Pelosi, not that Nancy Pelosi cares, but they can't go to the Democratic Party and say, look at all the pressure I'm under. I must deliver something, which is what every other Democrat is allowed to do, to say our constituents need these things. Hence Joe Manchin, Kristen Sinema, they do that.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, like what you were saying about the pressure, I think someone had talked about having a general strike. And I mean, that's one way to do it. Boycotting, you know, there are peaceful ways, but you know, there's like this circular thing happening right now with what they're doing with information and also control, censorship. Like you saw me post that I think it was a documentary filmmaker had filmed me at the Medicare for All, and then he got demonetized for broadcasting it. Okay, censorship is not supposed to be about our country, right? But yet it is, and we're seeing it over and over and over again.
And liberals are fooled with it, which is just mind-boggling.
Yeah, so we need, and you know, I think, you know, who went to prison last week, Danielle for telling, for telling the truth about what happened.
Right.
The Pentagon Papers, like if they were published now, they wouldn't have been published. Washington Post wouldn't have published it. Probably The Intercept or Jacobian would have published it.
Well,
I think.
Right, with Daniel Hale, it was the drone strikes that were happening under Obama. So it's like legacy media is really in the bag for the Democratic Party right now. And that's terrifying.
Yeah, and the water protector, and she got 4 years in prison. And the concerning thing about that is they used the expanded Domestic Terrorism Act on her sentencing. That's terrifying for activists. I mean,
who would expect that from the author of the Patriot Act?
Right.
Not really, but Joe Biden has claimed that. I mean, he said he wrote it. So
yeah, there you have it.
All of the show with the January 6th insurrection this past week, where they should have been focusing on the upcoming evictions. But we learned nothing new. I'm sorry, I keep lagging. I see it. We learned nothing new, but they're going to use the emotions that they ginned up in the, viewers of CNN and MSNBC to further erode our First Amendment rights. I mean, it's insidious.
It is, and we just need to keep calling it out. And podcasts like yours, and you both are very active on social media. You need to keep calling it out and keep bringing forward people that are, saying uncomfortable truths. Like the title of my book is called "Left Out When the Truth Doesn't Fit In."
That was a good segue. I was just about to announce it. I'm sorry you had to do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. So let me show the book cover.
Okay.
It's all back on here.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for showing.
I need to move over.
Technology.
That was so seamless.
We're firing all of our assistants.
Look out. For us, right?
Well, so obviously I think we know, but what was the impetus for you writing a book in the first place?
I had a difficult time finding a publisher. So my heart is very full of gratitude for Jackie Jordan with TV Guestbird, because she took that project on and took a lot of, flack for taking me on. No one would look at my project. I am a writer, so it was kind of a natural thing. And I tend to, for me, it's very cathartic. So that was really helpful. And I think one of the most difficult things for me during telling my story was one of the first times I told it was to the Washington Post, to Beth Reinhardt. And I write about that in the book. She was so abusive verbally. And she had me, like, at the end of the interview, I was literally throwing up in my bathroom in tears. And no survivor should have to do that. So the impetus was just, I don't want another survivor to have to go through what I went through. I wanted to set the record straight about the lies that were told about my life. You know, I had a lot of successes in my life, and none of those were covered in the corporate media. And I also wanted my daughter to have something of history to counter all this, you know, terrible publicity that came forward, you know, when I came forward about Joe Biden. And she's very supportive and very proud, and her friends are, and they're in their mid-20s, and they're going to vote these people out. So they're not going to put up with the Joe Bidens and Nancy Pelosi. So Nancy Pelosi and Dianne Feinstein, all of them can be fossilized if they want to be in those chairs, but they're going to get voted out.
I think that's right. And I think that is where the hope is. It's a beautiful book.
Thank you.
Finished it, so it's fresh in my mind. And I really applaud you and your bravery, because what's been done to you by, again, people who I used to align myself with and feel like were my party, I am so disgusted by, and it makes your bravery even bigger in my mind. So thank you.
Thank you. And, you know, Rose McGowan needs a big shout out, because she stood by me through this whole thing and did the forward to the book. She has had because she politically took the stand, and it became political instead of just, you know, about survivors. You know, she took career hits. You know, she had a music album that's incredible. It's called Planet Nine, and it's theta beats, and it's healing for survivors. It got completely suppressed. And, you know, she has said often, you know, the New York Times got a Pulitzer Prize off her back, you know, right. And it's bullshit that they're suppressing her now. And because she spoke up for me, but she published their questions because she thought they were so disgusting. And that was amazing that she did that.
Another fierce voice out there. And yeah, I loved what she wrote at the beginning of your book as well.
Yeah, it was cool.
It was very cool. I know we said we would only have you for 20 to 30 minutes, and we've gone beyond that. We're so grateful that you came on tonight and gave us your time. And really, I'm just so grateful how your strength is really providing a path for the women and girls behind you. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. And I wanted to mention two quick things. I wanted to give a shout out to RT. I know people really give RT a hard time and call it Kremlin funded, whatever, but it's not. It's just, you know, any more than PBS or NPR is it's also government funded. We don't call it American propaganda funded, you know, whatever. You know, but RT has some really good writers and has some really good articles, and I've been lucky enough to do some op-eds for them. And in September, I have a podcast coming that they're helping produce, and that will be called The Politics of Survival with Tara Reade.
I love that. Well,
That's beautiful.
Hope that you'll come back on and push it once again right before it comes, because we would love to. We'll definitely subscribe and follow, and everybody should go take a listen to that. That's wonderful.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you
so much for being here. Great to speak with you.
And good luck with your upcoming move.
Ah, yes.
All right.
We'll talk to you soon.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.